Chapter 1. The Girl with a Future. On the 1st of July, 1961, a baby girl was born at her family home in Sandringham, Norfolk. Her parents, Francis and Johnny Spencer, couldn't decide what to call her at first. They had 2 daughters already, and this time they really wanted a boy. Finally, they called her Diana. They didn't know that in the future the name Diana Spencer would be famous all over the world. They could not guess how popular she would be in her short but full life. The Spencers are a very old English family. They became rich a long time ago as sheep farmers, and the family goes back to King Charles II and King James II of England. They have been friends and helpers of the royal family for hundreds of years. The house they lived in then, Park House, was near the Queen's house at Sandringham. So Diana grew up almost next door to the royal family. Diana often visited them at Sandringham House when she was a little girl. The Queen's most important homes are at Buckingham Palace in London and Windsor Castle, just to the west of London. But she also spends time at Balmoral Castle in Scotland and at Sandringham House, which is in the east of England. Later, people called Diana a fairy tale princess, but her story was often a sad one too. Her parents had the son that they wanted so much in 1964. They called him Charles. But their marriage was unhappy, and soon terrible fights began. When Diana was only 6, her mother, Frances, ran away with another man, Peter Shand Kidd. For a long time, the children could only visit their mother at weekends. Frances very much wanted her children to live with her, but their father was against the idea, and so they stayed at Park House with him. Other women came to the house to look after the children, but they didn't usually stay long. The children made trouble for them. They threw their clothes out of the window or locked them in the toilet. The 2 smallest children, Charles and Diana, were really unhappy. Each night in bed, Charles cried for his mother, and Diana lay there alone, listening to him. She was too frightened of the dark house to get out of bed and go to him. But Diana and Charles were a loving brother and sister. As time went on, they often travelled by train together to visit their mother. Diana was always friendly with her 2 older sisters, Sarah and Jane, but they had different lives. Johnny Spencer tried to do his best for the 4 children, and at Christmas they could choose all the presents that they wanted. There were too many presents, and not enough hugs and kisses, they remembered later. Diana loved her father and wanted to look after him. She liked to help in the house too, and to look after her animals. she had a cat, Marmalade, and a dog called Jill. Like a lot of English girls, Diana learned to ride a horse. But after she broke her arm in an accident, she was frightened and didn't want to ride again. Like the children in many rich or old families in England, the Spencer children went away to school. Diana went to Riddlesworth Hall School in 1970, when she was only 7. She lived there during the term and came home in the holidays. In 1974, she went on to her mother's old school, West Heath School in Kent, which was on the other side of London from Norfolk. Her sisters, Sarah and Jane, were also students there. By then, her mother wasn't living in London, but in Scotland. She and her husband Peter had a large farm on an island. It was a wild and beautiful place, and Diana had some lovely holidays there. In Diana's young life, everything was always changing, and she often felt alone. She was very sad when her grandmother, her father's mother, died in 1972. Her grandmother was a very kind woman. She looked after Diana a lot when her parents separated. Things changed even more in 1975, when her grandfather died too, and the Spencer family moved into the old family home at Althorp in Northamptonshire. Diana's father was now Earl Spencer. Diana became Lady Diana Spencer, and her brother Charles a Viscount. Later, he too became an Earl. Until then, Park House in Sandringham was the only home that Diana knew. She didn't like going to Sandringham House to visit the royal family much. She felt strange in the royal house. But she loved Park House, with its friendly rooms and its big garden. She could go swimming in the pool there, play tennis, or hide in the treehouse. The children didn't really want to live at Althorp. They didn't enjoy their visits there when their grandfather was alive. The house was large, dark, and frightening, with lots of old family pictures on the walls. But as they grew up, they liked it more. They enjoyed having their friends to stay. It was a good house for parties. At school, Diana made plenty of friends. She was a good student, not especially clever, but she enjoyed her lessons. She liked English and painting, but she was best at dancing and swimming. It was soon clear that she would never go to university, but she was helpful and kind. She even won a cup for helpfulness. As part of the school's charity program, Diana began to visit old or ill people in the town near the school. Usually she talked to them or helped with their shopping. This is perhaps where her love of charity work began. But she was not always quite so good. Once she got into real trouble when she left the school at night. She planned to meet a friend outside the school to get some sweets from her. One of the teachers found her empty bed and called the police. The head teacher was very angry, but her parents were secretly amused. When Diana left Westheath School, she was 16. At first, she didn't know what to do. Life at home was changing again, because her father had a new wife. Her name was Rain, and she was the daughter of Barbara Cartland, a famous writer of love stories. Diana and her brother and sisters were not very pleased about the marriage. They didn't want Rain as their second mother, and were always fighting with her. But Johnny loved his new wife, and they were very happy together. And in the end, Diana was pleased that Rain was there to look after her father. In 1978, a year after the marriage, Johnny became very ill. The doctors thought that he would die. Rain nursed him back to health, but it was a long time before he was better again. A little earlier, in 1977, Diana went off to a very expensive finishing school in Switzerland because she didn't want to stay at home. Girls from rich families went there to learn to cook, to speak French, and to look after a home. Diana only stayed there for 6 weeks, then decided that she wanted to go back to England to work. In the past, girls from important families like the Spencers never worked for money. But times were different now, and Diana wanted to be like other girls of her age. "I can easily find a job," she told her father. He bought her a very nice flat in Coleherne Court, Kensington, in the centre of London. She asked a few friends to come and live with her. One of them, Carolyn Pride, was an old school friend of hers. This was the beginning of a really happy time for Diana. She was young and pretty. She had good friends, both boyfriends and girlfriends, and a nice flat and a car. She was free to try and find her way in the world. What could she do for a job? She loved children, and so she began to look after babies and small children for her sister's friends. Sometimes she cleaned their houses too, or cooked meals for them. She studied cooking again in London. She was good at Russian soup. But she and the girls in the flat ate chocolate most of the time. Then she found a job at the Young England School for Little Children. Here she was very happy, and her bosses were very pleased with her work. She was calm and kind with the children, and always gave them plenty of love and hugs. Soon there would be love in her life too. She would find her prince and fall in love. She would become the new Princess of Wales. She didn't know this, of course, but she did feel that she was getting ready for something special. Diana went to parties, and she had a lot of friends. But she was never serious about a man at that time. "I had to keep myself tidy," she said later, "for what was coming."